Hello, and welcome to Phantom Zone, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer, and then put it on trial for its various crimes against humanity. Should a film be found not guilty, it will be allowed to frolic freely for all of mankind to enjoy. If a film should be found guilty, though, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space, a phantom zone, if you will. I'm your host, as always, Adrian Torres, and joining me is my good FSR buddy, Scott Daly. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing pretty great, Adrian. It's time for the final solution, which is a weird name for that group, considering what this movie's about.
Well, their group's called Final Solution Resource.
Yeah.
So it's even odder.
It's just a lot of interesting choices in this one.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them. We, of course, are knee-deep in our experiment to open the doors and have more exciting guests and be more inclusive by featuring a whole bunch of female filmmakers, writers, podcasters, hosts, and the like. Because as I always mention, Scott and I are just two guys talking about extremely bad movies. That's something that everybody should be able to do. And there's a whole bunch of people that we wanted to highlight just to bring a variety of different voices on. And so joining us this week is, I'm going to say her an up-and-coming filmmaker of note, because I think that's the best way to describe her. And I am going to call her by two names. The second one is her actual name, but I'm going to make sure that I don't completely mispronounce it. So she goes by Jill 6, but her name is Jill Gevargizian. I totally messed it up, didn't I?
No, very close.
Yeah, it's so close. I will take that. How do you pronounce it correctly?
It's Gevargizian.
Ah, there it is. I didn't give it the little
just the
flourish.
on instead of the and, which you said it the way it looks. So, good job.
I try to speak phonetically sometimes. So, for those who don't know Jill, if you are somebody who has Shudder, then you should definitely make sure it's still on there, correct? Before I even pimp this out, I guess. Okay, good. Jill did a fantastic, and I'm not just trying to be nice to her, because she would cut me if she believed that I wasn't being nice or honest. But she has a short film that's on there that's called The Stylist. And The Stylist has played basically every conceivable place that you can think of that's humanly possible at this point. You said that it played in Jerusalem, or was it Israel recently?
In Israel recently. In oh my god, what's the town called? I don't fucking know the city.
It's okay. Israel's pretty cool enough. But her short film, like I said, is played everywhere, and it's racked up a ton of awards. And if you have Shudder, go watch it on there. If you enjoy it, she does have a Blu-ray that's for sale that has it and another one of her short films. And she is very, very, very cool. She lives here in Kansas City. She's a pillar of the film family or film community here in Kansas City, and she is, at least in my opinion, right on the cusp of being somebody that everybody should know about.
I don't think you said the title of my movie.
I was about to ask that question.
I said Stylist.
Okay, The Stylist.
Yeah, and your previous short film that's also on the Blu-ray is called Call Girl.
Yes, sir.
See, I'm making sure. I got it out there. That's all I gotta say. And you've also done a handful of music videos, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. But she knows lots of people, because you've also worked, in addition to the short films that you've done and the music videos, you've also worked on a handful of both short films and feature films with a slew of different people, whether it be actors or writers or directors that people know of.
Yes, I do like to work on other people's stuff, and that's where I learn most of what I've learned, I feel like. not having ever gone to film school.
I'd say you're doing rather well at this point.
Thank you.
And then we dragged you down to our level with this.
Welcome to hell.
Jill, as everyone's starting to take to do, that's been a guest on this recently, decided to take me to task over Twitter, directly blaming me for the movie that was chosen. Even though, once again, it was a case where I said, which of these two evils would you like? And there was a chance that tonight could have been us watching a film with Christopher Plummer and Martin Landau concerning a Russian cyborg with telekinetic powers. But Jill decided to go for what seems like the more interesting route that only ended up in madness. The movie that we saw is technically called Ten Zan, the final mission. Is that what the
Not
ultimate,
even close.
the ultimate mission. Even though if you go onto Amazon, it says Ten Zan Ultimate Warrior. And then if you look on IMDb, in addition to it being Ten Zan, the ultimate mission, it also goes as Missione Finale.
As it's Italian title.
It's an Italian title because the gentleman who technically wrote and directed it, who's listed as Ted Kaplan in the credits, is an Italian director from the heyday. He did lots of films in the 80s or 70s and 80s. And the background to this film is about 10 times more interesting to the actual movie, so we'll gloss over it as fast as we can. The movie was shot in North Korea. And that's the main thing to know about this film. Because if you know anything about films and North Korea, it's that they don't really go well together. And before this film was made, Kim Jong-il famously kidnapped a director and a couple actors to basically make a Godzilla-esque film for him, a kaiju film. That didn't go the way he wanted, so he decided maybe kidnapping people isn't the best way to have a film made. So he ended up getting a hold of this director and said, okay, we're going to give you a whole bunch of money. We're going to let you film in North Korea. It's going to be a great experience. So he sat down with some writers and he wrote this film that was going to be about the Battle of Ten Zan from World War II that took place in Japan. He wrote a script, sent it off to North Korea, and Kim Jong-il and a whole bunch of his advisors said, no, we don't really like this movie. We're going to change up the entire plot of the film, but we're going to keep the title of the film. And the director said, okay, that's interesting. We'll see what happens. He got to North Korea and had agents that were assigned to him the whole time, including his entire crew that worked on the film were constantly watched. They were basically secluded in a hotel, and when they weren't working on the film, they were locked in the hotel and had a curfew for when they had to be in the rooms each night. Things got so crazy that he never actually saw any of the locations before they shot. And in the script, the movie's supposed to take place mostly in a wild jungle, which is not really something we ever get in the actual film. And when they would go to the location, they would start filming. About 80% of the time, the North Korean army would show up and say, sorry, filming is impossible today, and would take them back to the hotel. So a large chunk of the movie actually had to be shot at the hotel because it was the only area that they could kind of wander around in. They were stuck there for months, and after the film got done, they released the director who said, I have to cut this in Rome because that's where my studio is. So they let him go to Rome. He cut the movie, and when it was done, he had to send it back to North Korea so they could view it and make sure that it was acceptable. Supposedly it screened in North Korea for the cast and crew, and then the director never heard anything ever again. And he basically got blacklisted, and for the next 20 years of his life, he didn't make another movie after this.
So good call, then.
Yeah.
Really great decision making all around.
It's it's so weird just because this like no one knows exactly what happened that this movie ended up making it to the light of day. The first time that people on an international level really got to see this movie was in 2000 when there was a film festival that was being held that was showing nothing but movies that were made in North Korea, and some small company was able to get the distribution rights, and because they were small and probably didn't have a ton of money, they were able to only put it on Amazon Prime for free, where you have to sit with subtitles that can't be removed that are not English subtitles.
Or you can't even search it on Amazon on your Roku. You have to add it to your watch list first.
Correct. Jill
It won't
contacted,
even come up.
because if you put in Ten Zan, it will revert to Ten Zan, and it won't let you find it. And if you try to put it under the actual title of Ultimate Mission, it won't pop up because in their system they have it as Ultimate Warrior. So it was a very trying experience to watch a movie that wasn't worth it. Um, that's all I got.
It's almost as if the movie doesn't want you to watch it.
Exactly. And this is an interesting case because we always go over the synopsis for the films, and in this case, they're exactly the same for IMDb and Prime. They both say terrorists are making genetic experiments on kidnapped girls. Professor Larson dreams of creating a master race to rule the world. Scientific organizations in Asia and Europe hire a group of mercenaries who are tasked to kill them. Only on Prime, they add the very important line, one of the only Western films to be shot in North Korea with the blessing of Kim Il-sung.
Well, I'm sold now. If it has his blessing.
I mean that's what made me interested in this movie in the first place, was the North Korea aspect. Was that the tipping point for you, Jill?
Yes, it was.
I wish that mattered more. I wish, like, the movie was a reflection of that at all, besides the fact that they never have wide shots because they can't actually show anything more than very limited things.
Yes. Jill, see, this is going to be an interesting episode because you're an actual filmmaker. You've worked behind the camera. You've plotted things out. Did this seem like it was made by a crazy person?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like it was one little story stretched out real long.
which is the perfect way to describe it. Because like normally when I write down like the breakdown of what we're going to be talking about or talking points, it's usually a whole bunch of nonsense, but usually there's probably about 20 or 30 little lines because I try to write things that will help us remember the scenes in the movie. This time it was very difficult to do that because when you're trying to piece together the film after you see it, it doesn't really stick together. And not only that, but as you're watching it, you're more so in the process of wanting to yell at the screen because you're not entirely sure what's happening or why it's occurring. I
stopped the movie several times and rewound to rewatch a scene I just watched because I couldn't remember what happened in the scene.
Because it's like 30 minutes of explosions straight. And nothing is happening except for explosions.
And they clearly recycling the same explosions too.
Yes. Or
30 minutes over and over again, and I just still don't know what happened.
Okay, so we'll do explosions. Yes, there are plenty of explosions. That's all you need to know about the movie. End of episode. What caught my attention right away, as we have two unnamed amphibious vehicles driving up to or just driving across the desert at first till they show up to the town, is you supposing that he's a bad guy at first because you haven't met a single person, and he just rolls a barrel of dynamite down the side of a hill to the side of a house and then just shoots it to cause an explosion. And you're thinking, okay, we're going to get a big action sequence. There's going to be a whole bunch of death. This clearly is a bad guy. Only this movie posits a different thing. While he did try to blow up the side of this house, they don't actually kill anyone in the town whatsoever, even though they decide to murder all their milk jugs in town.
Adrian, why do you roll this bomb down the hill?
I don't. Why does it roll so slowly?
Why
does the entire scene keep on cutting back to an old man standing at his fence?
Because he's a very sad man. You're right. There are a ton of explosions in this movie. This is like the dinkiest, lamest explosion in the entire thing. It doesn't even blow up the building it hits. It just explodes, and then everyone panics. And if you're trying to capture these women, I guess, to do tests on them, why would you blow up the side of a house first?
Yeah, the opening makes no sense.
No.
I'm like, is this a war movie? No, they're just creating a battle scene just to kidnap people. It makes no sense. Two people, one of which they leave behind. That's what I love. There's no need for any explosions.
No, they everybody goes running all over the place. They keep on jumping back to the old man. They literally have people in vehicles who are staring down jugs filled with milk and then firing on them when no one else is around. They have two women. This very tall, gangly man walks up and looks at both women and says, "Take this one, leave that one." They scattered everyone from the village, trying to blow up the side of a building for one woman.
Hey, so...
Yeah, because my first note was starts war, question mark? And then men capturing women feels rapey.
Oh
my God.
Maybe this is when I literally had amnesia during the entire course of this movie. Did they explain why they needed women specifically? Or was it just because we have to write women being captured?
There is an explanation. Unfortunately, I didn't grab the audio clip for that, so I will make sure after we record to do that, because it's something that I had to rewind a couple times because I thought I was losing my mind. But that's in a little bit, because first we have to get to, directly after all this happens, we have a helicopter that appears out of nowhere. A helicopter that lands about a mile away from the town, which bothered me to no end, because I'm like, you're in a helicopter. You can easily land just outside of town because you have a helicopter. The entire reason you have a helicopter is so that you can be as close to something as possible in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, I agree.
That's good. That's good. At least we're still on the same page. So we jump to some unnamed, I guess, nicer city because they don't have huts. And a whole bunch of people are practicing archery. And two men show up to talk to this other guy because they need to hatch a plan that some bad guys are doing. And that's all I got down because I could only understand half the dialogue between these three people because they have one guy who's clearly from North Korea, another guy who's also from North Korea, and then a guy...
I thought those were the good guys discussing what the bad guys are doing. Because isn't that where they say something about their... I were on that part too. They said something like, women, they're like, it was so gibberish. I don't fucking know. Something about women in slavery, and I don't know what else.
No, that's basically what I got. There were a couple words that it was very confusing. Lots of it's nonsense words. I mean, when the guy gets off the helicopter,
sorry,
it's okay.
My dog making a cameo.
That's good. They've got to put it on the film too.
Tina, come here.
Tina makes more sense than the film we just watched. But when the guy gets off the helicopter, he's trying to have a conversation with this bad guy, and they're saying phrases like "eliminate is an ugly word and has many,"
yes,
and then using the phrase "celestial happiness," and then it jumps to the guys who are talking about, oh, there's some bad dudes that are doing this bad thing. we need to get somebody to help us. And then it cuts from the outside weird shot of archery into, which is clearly the hotel that everybody was trapped in, but a gigantic fuck off hot tub where they decide to have a business meeting.
Oh my god.
And I love this because, like, now they're talking to another person, and you think, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy they're going to hire.
And Scott, do you remember what his fee was to hire another individual?
Was it like $50,000 or something?
$65,000.
Okay.
Which to me, in the pantheon of films, and in a film that takes place or was made in 1988, $65,000 actually sounds kind of reasonable.
It sounds like too much money for 1988.
It sounds like too much money for what the guy actually does, which just seems to be getting captured a lot and then magically winning in the end somehow.
And also, everybody knows him. Like, I made a note of that. Like, I'm like, Lou Mamet. First time we see him is on a train in which the bad guys have figured out where he is.
Well, that's my favorite part, because like the middleman is introducing who this guy that he's going to hire, and he's like, first name Lou, surname Mamet, date of birth unknown, place of origin unknown, availability anytime, anywhere. So like they've made it clear like he's this mysterious man, and then the very next scene, a woman walks in and says, Lou Mamet from Long Island? Yes.
Montauk. Montauk.
But it's like, oh, so I guess we know where he's from then. I guess that was just a lie.
Oh, man.
Wait, back to the exterminating comment. I feel like they were very like high and mighty about, basically they're just hitmen and they call themselves exterminators the whole fucking movie. They never once said they killed people ever. No.
Well, I mean, one of the sets of explosions that we get in like the first city that they're attacking is like they show that they've got the missile launcher mortar device that's firing a whole bunch of rockets out, but like the first 25 that land all conveniently miss all the major targets. So they're not very good at
exterminators.
No, it's not. We do have a clip that we'll insert for my favorite part at the beginning of the film, which just shows how much, just like Jill was mentioning, that they try to stretch out so much, because after he has the first person who recognizes him, the bad guy from the very beginning of the film shows up and decides to talk about tickets and the train ride.
Hey, Adrian.
Yeah.
Why don't they just kill him here?
You mean considering the fact that he puts the boot up in front of the guy when he tells him that he has to have the rest of the train ride?
Yeah, I just don't, there's just like there's all this posturing about, it's a round trip ticket. Well, good. Go on it. And then it's just like, just kill him. What are you doing?
I don't know. Especially because they just casually let him get off the train.
And then immediately capture him again.
And then capture him again. And the other guy from the very beginning of the film says, now you really are going to have to get that round trip ticket, and knocks him out. And I'm like, you weren't even in the last scene. How did you hear that conversation?
He read it in the script. The script told him.
That makes sense.
He read the script.
It's ridiculous. We're also introduced to one of the only female characters in the entire film who has more than 2 lines. And she's introduced just riding along with the Mr. Ricky guy from the beginning of the film. And she has a violin case with her. And she ends up having to save Lou Mamet. And she has I guess it's a mini crossbow is how you describe it. But she has it in the violin case, which seems like a weird thing to carry around with you.
That's the one guy's sister, right? That's not actually her sister.
Yeah.
Yes. that when she couldn't
Wait.
just say that it's his adopted sister.
Yes. I like how when she enters the shot, they like do one of those like start from the feet up and sexualize her kind of shots. And then they do the same thing when the scary guy shows up. Like they just start on his feet. They don't go all up his body, but they start on his feet the same way. And I'm like, oh, very clever cinematography.
Well, they also have the close up to the violin case when it's got the crossbow in there, and then they try to have a close up to make it seem suspenseful when she's putting it together, and it's like there's very few pieces to a crossbow. I don't know why you're having her go very slow about this. The person is being beat up right there. It's a crossbow. You only have one shot. Just put it together. There's a reason why people usually bring sniper rifles to these things. But just like everybody in this film, thinking is not their strong suit. And this whole like fight, chase, jump around, gun fighting scene goes on forever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just actively stopped paying attention at this point. Like I know this fight scene happened. I could not. You could pay me a lot of money, and I could not tell you the specifics of it at all.
Jill, do you remember specifics of it?
No. And I just watched it.
Why am I the only? The fight starts out in like a grain.
You're taking serious notes, I think.
No, I just remember this crap. It's important. I don't like it because they have the entire part where they're running on one boat, they end up on another boat, and then they see the small boat that someone's driven up beside them. But then when they jump onto the boat, there's no one on it, so they drive off. And then when they stop, they have to get into different vehicles, one of which is a fire truck, because when Ricky and Mamet end up meeting up, Ricky decides that he's going to shoot Mamet with the fire hose, and they have a good laugh.
Oh, that part I remember, because it was weird as shit.
I know, like, I didn't know if they were trying to sexualize the two of them. Like, for a second, I'm like, oh, they used to be a couple. But no.
That would have been infinitely more interesting than anything else that happens in the movie. So I wish they had done that. But no. He just, like, sees the guy's sister, and then he's like, hey, you stay away from her. The most boring line in the history of films.
And then he goes
says,
over.
don't get any ideas. To be exact. See, I remember something.
Yeah. And then he goes over to him and he goes, it's been such a long time since I've seen you recently. 3 years to be exact. And I'm like, why is that the detail that you're telling me? There's so many other things that should be discussed right now, and this is what we're talking about. And then they go to the place that they're staying at, and Ricky goes off for a little bit. So Mamet decides that he's going to talk to the sister, and I guess try to put the moves on her. And she had a line that seems like it was from an infinitely more interesting movie and made me think of two much better films I'd rather be watching. When she goes, and we've got the clip here where she says what Ricky has told her. That's Flash. That's Flash or Johnny Utah, a football star who works for a secret organization.
Yeah, right? I mean, yes, but we weren't supposed to know anything about him. He's supposed to be all unknown, and we keep learning more stuff about him. He's not mysterious at all.
Like 20 minutes later in the film, we get the scene where he mentions that he was in Russia for a period of time and had to learn to be a dancer in the Russian ballet.
Oh, wait. That part is so weird. He's like, I was dancing. Wait. You skipped over how homoerotic this movie is? Before he meets the sister, or they have their little like falling in love stare.
Yeah.
I don't know any character's name. Hold on. the brother had just sprayed him down with the hose, so he had to take his shirt off. So it perfectly set up that he was shirtless when the sister walks in.
So I forgot about the shirt.
That's a great moment.
But yeah, I thought they were with the fire hose is where I thought they were setting up sexual chemistry between the two dudes.
Oh yeah, and there's another moment that was pretty intense between them. I feel like
I felt like half of them, like they've got so many lines that seem like it's.
Oh wait, yes, the dancing. He says he must have looked cute in tights.
Oh, that's right. He does.
Yeah, it's so weird because
the guy just walks out of the scene.
Because you think at first they're talking about dancing like it's a euphemism for just murdering people, and then quickly
I thought he was a stripper.
Well, okay, my brain did not go there, but it's possible. But like it just it turns out no, he's just actually a ballet dancer to I guess do killing. They never really. You're right that they never really admit that they take out any people.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned that part of the reason that he had to do it because I guess one of the other guys who was in the ballet was an agent from some other organization, but he's like really vague about it. He's like, there was some nuclear stuff and the Americans and the other guys, it was just a bad situation. But he doesn't mention like how it was resolved or anything like that.
Yeah, he kind of hints that he was like, I got the idea that he says he did the whole dancing thing undercover, but was actually dancing. Like, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why is Ricky here? Why?
Because he's the point man.
He's the middleman. He goes off. He hires Lou, and then Lou goes and does his mission. But that never happens.
The Lou is okay. I guess the best way to kind of explain, at least how I took it from the way that he describes it, is that Ricky is kind of like, why am I blinking on his fucking name? Nick Fury. Okay. So he's the head of, as he says, the FSR, the Final Solution Resource. Again, terrible name. But that's his company or group. And he says that sometimes they'll need a team. Sometimes they'll need just one guy. It depends on what the situation calls for. So this situation, he decides that Lou is the only person that's needed for it. So it'd be like if Nick Fury calls up just Captain America. It's like, hey, I've got this mission for you. And that's kind of what it feels like his job is. It's just they're really bad at their job.
Still don't understand why Ricky's here.
Because he's making sure that everything's going smooth. That's just like I said, like the times when Nick Fury's around just to make sure that everything's handled correctly and doesn't get out of hand.
But Nick Fury doesn't go on the entire mission. Ricky and Lou never leave each other's side because they're in love.
True. And then also Ricky's sister gets kidnapped.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, I don't understand. I don't understand the geography of this movie. Like, did they infiltrate another country to find this stuff? Or this just happens to be where they live? And also...
I don't... It doesn't make sense, because they cut back to the bad guys at one point, and they mention that they've got different chemicals and stuff that they're sending to different countries. But it doesn't really make... Like, you don't have a sense of how big their operation is. And one of the bad guys is like, we can't send this out because it's not potent enough. And this all ties back into something that's in the synopsis that we find out in a very convoluted way. Because the next scene after when they're talking to the sister and everything, we see Professor Larson again, who's talking to Lou. And he's mentioning that the bad guys have several different serums. And that the serums can give people, more focused and stronger abilities, but that the main serum that they have comes from a hornless deer serum. And the serum, when it counteracts with women, you'd think it was like reproductive organs, but he mentions in their throat, and that when it mixes with the women, that if they have the right genes, it allows them to produce stronger offspring. to create a master race.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense. I understand completely now.
But he mentions that that's why the bad guys have to be stopped. As we find out later in the movie, he is the head bad guy, and he is the guy who's created the serum.
Yeah.
So he is having somebody be hired to stop his organization.
Which doesn't make any sense at all. But also, at this point, I had read the summary before I watched the movie. So I was like, oh, that's the bad guy they said was the bad guy in the summary. So that was ruined for me. So not that they do a good job revealing the twist, but it was ruined.
And, well, the thing that confused me is how Lou proves to be rather dense in this scene, because he's not really paying attention to everything the guy's saying, because he's like, that sounds like that stuff would be rather illegal. Or then he's got a quote that he mentions about just the security situation. And his line literally is, that doesn't seem like the kind of job for mercenaries. It detracts too much attention.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
Jill, were you able to make sense of anything that was going on in this film?
In this film? Just the whole film?
No.
No. Okay. Did you understand at all what he meant by counteracting a serum with something that was in women's throats?
Oh my God.
Please explain how your throat is different.
What is it about your throat that leads to being perfect for eugenics?
How does one create a master race with the throat of women?
I haven't figured this out yet.
Wow. So the North Koreans are ahead of us in something.
I knew it.
But I got excited when they mentioned eugenics because we're in the month of December, and this time last year we covered elves, of course, which famously had a wonderful scene where a professor tried to explain that there are two schools of thought when it came to elves. One of them was that they were mythological creatures that somehow ended up in the real world, and the other one is that they were eugenics gone wrong. And so when they mentioned eugenics in this movie, I'm like, is it elves? Is this secretly a covert sequel to elves?
Man, we get these elves together with these North Koreans and we're in trouble.
Sure, we're in lots of trouble, because they know so much about women's throats that we don't. Right? That's the correct message to be taken.
This is such a weird ass movie. Oh my God.
And then they have scenes where it's like, hey, we're going to have 3 to 5 minutes of dialogue, and then we're going to just drag everything out because they try to have this weird, convoluted chase sequence in the next scene where the sisters got people who were tailing her from the bad guys organization, and they try to have a whole bunch of shots saying, look how cool and clean things are here in this part of North Korea. Because they've got a shot of what looks to be like the longest escalator I've ever seen. And then they have the nicest subway terminal I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, you gotta. I mean, that was probably mandated by the government. You have to show how nice and clean their subway tunnels are.
I don't. But it looks fake. Did that?
It's absolutely. Yeah, it's totally fake. Everything we saw that was in North Korea was fake.
Well, like those columns that they had. Did that strike anyone else as weird? Or
it's cardboard. It's definitely cardboard.
Jill, you're the person who's been behind the camera. Did anything about that feel off to you?
Everything about it. I just went on a different tangent because I was looking at the poster on IMDb where it says what I assume to be in Italian something, but it's actually in Dutch and says a mission of life or death. So now there's a fourth language slash something involved in this thing. Yeah, the quote on the front is in Dutch of this poster on IMDb.
What the fuck? That's how is it that
What is
one
this?
of the only posters you have?
What is this movie?
Dutch?
Actually, they only have 2 images, and it has the same tagline that is in Dutch as well.
But the second poster has Lou's actor's name, Frank Zagarino, but it says Striker in parentheses.
In parentheses.
Frank Striker Zagarino.
Oh. See, now this is positing, again, a situation where, like, the story behind the movie is more interesting than the film, because that makes me wonder if, like, somehow a copy of the film, or like how we have access to the film, was like snuck out somehow to some Dutch-speaking country. Like, that's all I can think of is some weird case. Because for those who are just listening and didn't watch the film, when you see it on Amazon Prime, it's not like a clean copy of a film. It definitely looks like somebody recorded it off of a VHS tape or off of TV on a VHS tape and said, here, this is the best you're ever going to get. So
yes,
just use it. So that makes me wonder if, like, somebody who was living in North Korea somehow ended up taping it off TV one day and then got out of there and were, some variation of Dutch, and we're like, we need to get this out to the world.
Can you imagine?
That's why we have weird ass posters.
Can you imagine some Dutch guy like snuck into North Korea? It's like on a mission to bring out news of how things are going in North Korea, and he finds this and he grabs it and he escapes.
You see this movie on TV when he's in a hotel at night?
Yeah, and he grabs it and he escapes, and then he brings it back to his government, and they're like, "Oh, but this is bad, though."
I feel sorry for them.
I'm sorry you wasted the trip. Can you go back and get something better?
Yeah, that's the strange thing about the film, because there's so much that doesn't happen. And Jill put it perfectly succinctly with that there's so much that's stretched out, because there's not a lot that happened. What we described was basically the first 45 minutes of the film, and the second 45 isn't really any better.
No,
we get a couple scenes where the bad guys are talking with the sister. They're the 2 main guys of Ricky and Lou decide that they need to get back the sister, but they still need to do their job in destroying all traces of the serum. And in the process of attempting to blow up different cities, they get the sister back. While this is happening, you also have the not head bad guy, not the professor guy, but the next in line, Jason, who the first time they mentioned his name as Jason is like 3/4 of the way through the film. And I was like, who the fuck is Jason? And they were, oh, he's this guy just through process of elimination?
Yeah.
The guy that's still alive? Okay.
He's got his super tall Italian girlfriend also.
Yes.
And then
who is the professor's daughter.
Yeah.
And we get a scene where she says that her dad wants to talk to him, and they have a really long scene at a monastery.
Oh my god!
In which we're seeing, like, the daily rituals for like 7 minutes of the film, and then he decides to walk across the courtyard to find the dad, who says that Jason has completely lacks vision and doesn't understand his view of the dream of creating the master race, and then calls Jason impotent, which makes him basically go, fuck you, dude, and shoots him, and then leaves, and he decides that he's going to spend the rest of the movie blowing up all the cities, which pisses off Ricky and Lou, who are like, wait a second.
That's our job.
This guy's got to be up to more, because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
It's just nonsense. And you're absolutely right that, like, the last 30 minutes of this movie is just going from town to town, blowing it up, and then shooting automatic weapons. And it's like in other movies we talked about, Adrian, where, like, the scenes are just medium shots of one guy firing a weapon, and then we cut to a medium shot of another. There's like never any shots with the people in the same shot. They're all just people standing still, firing an automatic weapon at each other. It's just the most boring way to shoot action I've ever seen.
And then, like, the dialogue that they have is so stilted. I mean, some of it I found funny and just how confusing it was. One of my favorite moments is when they're deciding, oh, we need to go find the sister. You know, that's important. And so Lou's like, we gotta go, we gotta go do this. And so Ricky makes the comment, oh, don't worry, she's stronger than she looks. Don't underestimate her. Her mother was brutally raped. Her father was killed. Need I say more?
Yeah, it was so like
So
like,
weird.
what does that even fucking mean?
Exactly. I was like, yes, I would like you to say more. Why did you bring this up in the conversation? I would like to believe that she has many redeeming qualities. None of them are associated to the fact that her mother was brutally raped and her father was killed.
Well, I think that we were to imply that because of this, she's become a badass and had to do something to get to where she is now. But none of that was. He just said, "Need I say more?"
I'm like, yes. This is one of the few times where I would like somebody to continue talking.
I know, for a movie that tried to stretch itself out as long as possible, that strikes me as a I don't feel like writing the rest of the scene line.
I know. Okay, Jill, you've written some of your stuff in the past, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How little thought has to go into the process of something like this?
This is a great question.
I don't understand how something. Yeah, I don't know. Not a lot of thought. That's how something like this happens.
Because that's one of my favorite pieces of hearing the background to the film, and the fact like they had a completed script and they wanted it to be a full war film, and then
I bet the script wasn't exactly completed. I bet it was really short and horrible. Like, I've seen real life scripts that people think are ready to be made into movies. And then they just go make them. And then that's why when you watch the movie, they don't make any sense because they didn't make sense on paper.
Yeah.
That's normally like, if the movie's bad, it's the script's like that's where it started.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm interested in this case, since they had a completed script, sent it to North Korea, and then North Korea said, no, we don't like this, we're changing it. So draft 2 is somehow less of a film than whatever draft 1 was.
Maybe this is all Kim Il Sung's fault. He rewrote it.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair assumption. Damn you!
Like, this all makes sense to me.
Damn the Kim family.
No, that's not.
Now we're gonna get killed.
Fine. You know what? If I'm gonna have an enemy, I want it to be the leader of North Korea.
You want it to be somebody who will focus all their money and power and desire to destroying you.
Yeah. I mean,
let's just say there's a chance
worried
that they might hire someone from the FSR. So
bring it.
You know how that goes.
Wait, is it the FSR?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we need patches or something.
And because we've got a couple clips that I'll just have you pump in here, Scott, because they're just ridiculous. Like, when you listen to the dialogue, so.
The final solution.
And no loose ends.
Except for one thing. Your watch. You lost.
We're destroying everything.
Jason figures that with Larson out of the way, he'll destroy the evidence. Take the money and run with all his men.
That's right. Except for two things.
What's that?
You and me.
Paranoiac!
we'll have a moment of silence for them here.
You don't really need to do a moment of silence though, because that's not how editing works.
Well, I don't. You usually tell me just to do it. So, thank you, Scott, for making me feel ridiculous as always.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the moment of silence in respect to the movie.
To the death of the movie? Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. It's just, but when it comes to something like okay, there's plenty of times when we do these movies that you'll get pieces of dialogue that are so ridiculous that they're entertaining, and like you can't parse. Did somebody think this was good, or was somebody like, I keep on trying and I can't get it. This is just the best it's going to end up being. But in this film, you're having to look through the eyes of this person who is just ego overload and is convinced that every single thing that they're doing and every single thing that they're writing is pure gold. So it takes on another level of trying to like figure out the mindset of this person, and it hurt my brain.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this thing.
No.
This was such a strange. Like, we've done so many of these movies now, and it's like you start to like get into a rhythm of the type of bad movie you're watching, and this was something unique, but not in a good way.
What did you guys think about the ending? Do you even remember the ending?
I remember it.
Did they ride off in the boat together? Or was that 5 minutes before the ending when I thought it was over?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Because they had the bet. I don't even remember exactly what the bet was.
Didn't the sister and blonde guy, see, I don't know anybody's name, get on the boat and ride off together and
but
romantic?
He gets the necklace first because he won the bet. There was a bet that Ricky and Lou had, and Lou ended up winning. So Ricky, who's the brother, gives him a necklace that was part of their bet. Then he walks over and gets on the boat with the sister and gives the sister the necklace that he just got from the brother. And then says, okay, let's go. And they drive off on the boat, and then Ricky just drives off in a Jeep, and the end credits while they're rolling, it's just weird stock B footage of the water, but not with the main characters, and then cuts back to Ricky driving off in the Jeep, and then just focuses on him driving down far into the distance on the Jeep. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I don't know where he's going because he's on an island.
He's gonna hopefully find another boat somewhere because they just left him behind.
Yes, that's the entire reason why they got on the boat, is because they had to take it back to the mainland.
So the part of this ending that drove me crazy was when Jason, in his dying breath, falls on the dynamite plunger, blowing up the building. And it's like, Jason, they were going to do that anyway.
Anyways,
that's what their mission was.
Lou's just standing there staring, and he's like, well, okay, that helps.
Oh, thanks. This made it easier on me. I guess we leave now?
The movie just cleans itself up in a really big way, because like Jason just all of a sudden goes crazy, and he's like, haha, I'm going to kill you. And now I'm going to blow everything up because you're completely insane. And I'm like, you knew what his plan was. You knew why you were sending this stuff. And that's why you were so excited that the sister was a virgin, even though 2 seconds later you thought that raping her was a good idea. I mean, he doesn't. So thankfully weird. The movie's just like, we're going to have him be creepy, and he's not going to go through with it. But I'm like, but you just said that she was special and she was perfect for the organization because she was a virgin. But then your next thought was that you should make her not a virgin.
Yeah, I think you can't apply.
Of course he's gonna fucking do that. I was not at all surprised by that scene, waiting for that scene to happen.
Well, no, I mean, like, had he like had there been someone else that he's like, she's not pure and she's not right, and then he did it, I could kind of understand. And I'm like, this goes against like the entire project you guys are working on. And I wasn't sure if like the actor didn't know that, or if maybe they were trying to write Jason to not know that, but
I think
that's like too much credit.
I think you're putting too much thought. Like you're thinking more about the film than they did, clearly. So
yes, I don't. A couple of the show notes in here literally says, "Who cares? Just stop." And that's how I felt about the movie. I want to resurrect a segment since we do have Jill here. So I'd be very curious if you have any insight or thoughts on it. If you don't, that's totally understandable because this film is goddamn nonsense. But we have a part that's how I'd fix it, where somebody tries to posit a variation on this movie that's not complete and utter shit.
That is a challenging thought. I'm not sure. It could be 30 minutes long instead of an hour and 40 minutes.
That's true. That would help.
I have a funny thought that's not about redoing it, but I like to think that Nicholas Winding Refn was somewhat inspired by this film.
what? Go on.
Okay, go on. Yes, exactly.
Only God Forgives. I'm thinking, a European director took this blonde, attractive American actor to an Asian country and made an action film. That's all. That's the only connection.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, that's so good.
I just think I had been inspired by this movie.
What a weird. That would be great if secretly we don't know it, but in like the end credits in the special thanks, this movie's listed, but under a Dutch title.
Yes. Oh my God, that makes so much sense because isn't he Dutch?
I'm not sure, but there's got to.
Which is where the movie was clearly biggest due to its poster. I'm assuming.
I really think you just cracked this thing wide open.
It makes sense. Everything in this movie makes sense now. We now need to do a double feature of Only God Forgives and Ten Zan. There you go.
Now,
you would get some confused ass people at that double feature.
I would never offend you to say your movie is even close. Anything is like this? It's amazing.
No.
But had to be inspired by it.
Had to be. It's the only logical solution.
I agree.
This film a national treasure now. That's right.
Close. Oh my God!
Not the direction I thought you were going to go in. So what you're saying is that there's no way to save this film.
No, I don't think so.
That's perfectly fine. Did anybody have a ray of sunshine, a moment that stood out in the terribleness of the film that you enjoyed or made you laugh extremely hard?
I liked the train scene at the beginning. That was very enjoyable to me. But that's all I got.
I still like the moment I already brought up with the fire hose, and then the girl walks in afterwards. I mean, I was drawn into the love story right there.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about movies and stuff that this is clearly inspired, then technically that fire hose into the shirt taking off scene has clearly inspired every single Marvel film of the last decade, right? That's what to get that gaze in there.
Yeah, the secret truth of Hollywood is every director is inspired in some way by Ten Zan, the ultimate mission.
It's got to be. That's the only explanation. Yeah. Every cultural luminary that you know of has taken something
from this luminary. This film sucks.
Okay, any final thoughts before we vote?
No. Let's get this over with.
Okay.
How does this voting go exactly?
But it's very simple. If you vote not guilty, you're saying that the movie is entertaining or enjoyable enough that you would suggest for people to watch it. That it's something that you might revisit again, or at least you won't think of terribly. Whereas if you vote guilty, you're saying that the movie is worth absolutely no one's time whatsoever. It is clogging space and just creating a mess for all of humankind, and that the only good thing to do is to launch it far into space where it can never hurt anyone ever again.
I think he's kind of leading you here a bit.
Wow.
No. I mean, it's very true, because there's been a couple movies where we've been surprised and we voted not guilty. Like, we've spent an entire episode trashing something, and then we're both like, no, it's not guilty. I definitely show this to people.
Yeah. Not this, though.
Okay, well then, Scott, you vote first.
It's guilty. This, like, it's like, it's boring. It's not fun bad. It's not funny bad, except for one or two scenes. It's just a boring waste of time, and no one should have to watch this movie.
Okay. Jill?
I unfortunately agree, is guilty. But after your long description, Adrian, I feel bad saying that about it, but it's definitely not guilty. Yeah, it's not fun, like you said, Scott. It's not fun bad. It's just not good.
No, that's how you gotta be honest with your voting. So that works. It's a good reason. I'm going to agree with everybody else, and I'm going to say that it's guilty. It's a slog. There is, the cultural interest and historical aspect to it, with the fact that it is only one of a handful of films that were shot in North Korea. But it's very much a case where the background story and reading about it is far more interesting than seeing the actual output. I don't know the actual title of it, but you can easily find it by Googling it. But there is the Kaiju movie that was made when he actually had the people kidnapped and were forced to make that film. And I guess there was a couple different films that were made in the last decade that were about how great and strong North Korea are. And those seem like they'd be more interesting to watch. Describing this movie and just saying that it's an Italian directed English language film shot in North Korea that's an action espionage film makes it sound a billion times better, and that's just not the case at all.
That's what sold me.
Yeah,
we were misled.
Yes, and there were there's moments where I thought it was bordering on just becoming zany and going into comedic territory. And there's a moment when he's where Lou is talking to the professor when he first meets him, and they've got all these taxidermied animal bodies around, and they keep on finding really weird ways to frame them in the holes of the body, basically. So if there's tiger legs that are apart, then they'd shoot in between the legs to get a shot upwards of Lou. And then when they cut back and they were talking to the professor, it would be framed in a way so it looked like his head was inside the jaguar's mouth.
Huh, I do not remember that.
Yeah, but it's one of those where it just seems like they were in a very small room and it's all the cameraman could do.
Yeah. So
even the movie, the moments that it has, all seem by accident. So I'm glad that this is going off into the Phantom Zone, where it will never hurt anyone ever again. Except for the director's career, which it completely destroyed.
Yeah,
So,
I kind of feel bad for him.
No, I don't entirely feel bad for him because he died never having to see the film.
I guess that's a silver lining.
It is. Jill,
Guys,
is there
wait.
what?
If you click on what the hell was just happening?
I don't
Okay,
know. What are
my
you doing?
my IMDb is possessed. I was clicking on the director's name and it was taking me to like another film. I just had a glitch in the Matrix real quick.
So
He
what you're
did
saying?
direct 38 movies, so I
Yeah.
wonder what he did before this. They
Should
can't
I-
all be like this one.
I almost feel like taking a look. Do you have it up right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Scott and I have done this before, where we've been really curious about like where people took a wrong turn, and it has left or taken us down very interesting routes. There was one time where we were talking about a film and we ended up finding about this really weird guy who was had worked on like stunts for movies and written a couple bad films, and it turned out that he was a bodyguard for several of the Kardashians, including then Bruce Jenner. And when when Bruce transitioned over to Caitlyn, his former bodyguard who had worked on one of the movies that we saw ended up legally changing his name to the new and now Bruce Jenner.
What was the name? What was this movie again? I don't remember.
I don't remember which one of the movies it was, but we were curious to find out like what type of people's worked on this film, and it literally led to this rabbit hole. So, this guy's already sending me on a rabbit hole because of the fact that he has worked on a movie that he made shortly before the Ultimate Mission that was called War Bus. And sure enough, on the poster does have a bus that has gentlemen with machine guns on the outside of it. And the plot to that movie is a group of soldiers in Vietnam saving some missing in action soldiers in a school bus.
Oh my god.
I am sad we didn't see that. There is one of the many Django offshoot films that he directed, one of the more popular ones called Django Prepare a Coffin. The same year that he directed the film in North Korea, he made a movie that was called Just a Damned Soldier.
I'm looking at Texas. Adios.
Yes, I saw that. I'm like, that seems like a very... Oh, no way. No way. Okay, this guy's actually rather famous. Now, both of you have been to Fantastic Fest. Scott, you've been there just enjoying the festivities. And Jill, you were there last year with the stylist. But there is a famous or infamous film that this guy directed, the poster of which is actually hanging up at the Alamo South Lamar. And that's Coming at You, the ridiculous, over-the-top 3D film.
Huh. I don't remember seeing this poster.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just probably the least observant person in the history of the world.
No, the poster's got signatures from a couple people. I don't know who, but yeah, it's hanging up in the hallway because the movie was supposed to be terrible, but it's one of those where it's like, oh, this is the early days of 3D. We have to have everything look like it's jumping at the screen. And that was one of the films that this guy directed. So thank you for suggesting that, Jill. That was perfect. Now I feel even sadder for this guy because it looked like he had a successful, like, Italian spaghetti Western career that somehow in the mid to late 80s just went off the deep end.
I'm pretty sure he died happy. He directed 38 movies.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than I'm doing. So
like none of these are even shorts; they're all features.
yeah, and I've heard of a couple of them. So that's pretty good. I mean, I do feel I feel slightly bad because it looks like the last several that he made, he was a little bit embarrassed of since he decided to be credited as Ted Kaplan as opposed to
Yeah, who the hell is Ted Kaplan?
Yeah. Yep.
I better decide what my name's going to be when I make something I hate. I'm going to change my name too.
Like, just change it to Glenda. That's like the only thing I remember about the tall European 80s model-esque evil hench woman, I guess you call her, from this film. That's all I got. Jill, is there anything that you would like to currently promote that you're doing, or that you want people to go out and find on the internet, or do you just want people to give you money?
Yes, give me all of your money, please. I don't know. I have a couple projects that'll be out next year, so really just follow my stuff. There's nothing specific right now. I don't know what to say.
Well, like I said, we'll definitely put we'll get the link from you to put in the show notes for where people can find the Stylus Blu-ray so that they can purchase that if they would like to, because I know that every little bit will help from that. I bought my copy this last weekend because I've been stupid and just dragging my feet, and I thought buying it in person was better than just placing the order online.
Much better.
Yes.
Yeah, all my stuff, you can watch most of my stuff and buy anything, all my site, sixtape.com. 2 X's. I've got another video coming out soon and a couple shorts next year. And I'm planning on shooting at least my first, if not 2 features next year. So blam.
Which is super exciting. And I like, it's been really cool just to watch, because Jill's been on a couple different podcasts recently and talking to her in person. It's really been very cool, like just over the last handful of weeks, to like see all this stuff starting to come together for you. So it's been very cool, especially seeing just like how excited you are about the possibility.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. And where can you be found on the social media platforms?
At Jill6 all over the place, and then at The Stylist Film, and at Sixtape on all of the social medias.
You are very active on the social media.
Yes. Twitter might be my favorite.
I think that's one of the few times I've heard anybody say that, because it's Twitter, so most people are usually have disparaging remarks to make.
Those are people who haven't figured out how to use it yet. It is a way different thing that it took me quite a while to get, like, I don't know, to see, like, how does this work, or how does it benefit anybody, or how do you really connect with people? Mm-hmm. I think that people, when they first started, if you treat it like Facebook and you've got to like be really involved. It's not just like a post and then walk away kind of a thing. Like Facebook is to me. Twitter is think of it like a chat room. You got to be like in there all the time, or don't even do it. Almost.
See, Scott, this is why we don't have thousands of followers.
Yeah. I just try to come up with clever things once a day on Twitter, and that's the extent of my tweeting.
Do you succeed?
It's not going well.
I just want to have one witty thing a day, and I can't even do that. Oh, that's okay. We're all getting trounced by Wendy's right now, so
yeah.
Wendy's
likes Lady Bird, and therefore is amazing. Apparently,
Wendy's got in a conversation with A24 about how much they liked Lady Bird, and A24 said, "Let us know if you're planning on coming over to Film Twitter anytime soon."
Actually, there was a whole article about the lady running the Wendy's account. It's a pretty interesting article.
What a time to be alive. Scott, where can you be found on the social medias?
On that thing that I just said I was bad at, Twitter, at ScottDaily85. And you can also find all the other podcasts I do at dailyplanetfilms.com. That's DALY.
I mean, the nice thing about the internet, Scott, is now that you say you try to do these things and fail, you'll invariably have more people show up in the next couple of days adding you just to see if you fail on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's true. It's a weird, strange land we live in.
Right. Yes. I can be found at Adrian Torres on Twitter. Also, my writing, of course, always goes up on boomhowdy.com. Don't have anything right now, but I have gotten my assignments for like the next several weeks, including several movies that I've already seen. So I'm going to have The Post going up in a couple weeks. I'm going to have Phantom Thread going up in a couple weeks, which is in my probably top 3 to 5 favorite films of the year. I've got a piece on Shape of Water coming up. So it's a very good time of the year when it comes to watching films. And films that are much, much better than this. Of course, we will be back next week. We are doing our makeup episode because we're going to be having Liz Nelson on, and she's going to be talking with us about the film Spookies from 1986. So anybody who wants to see that ahead of time, that's how you're able to see it. So it's going to be a good time. We've got lots of stuff planned with guests that are upcoming. Jill, I want to thank you so much for coming on and gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Fun. And I still like you guys, even though I watched that horrible movie.
That means so much. That means so much.
Yeah, it's all Adrian's fault. Don't blame me.
I feel bad because I want to bring these people on who are talented individuals that I respect, and then I go, oh shit, that's right. I have to make them watch this movie now. So, yeah. Well, until next time.
Was that it? Until
yeah. That's
okay.
I thought you were just goodbye.
I didn't know if something was going to happen there.
I'm just gonna press the stop button now.
I don't need no predictions. I don't listen to fate. I'm a cold soul survivor. And I've been known not to wait. In a land of confusion, no one's ready to face. If it's love that you're after, then you're in the wrong place, baby. Soldier. Soldier, where's your sister? Can you hear